Throughout the world, motherhood is cherished. In fact, mothers are regarded as symbols of love and a bond that connects various generations. These are the ties that define planet Earth. However, the road to motherhood is laced with dangers. Millions of women risk their lives in their quest to be vessels of nature's quest for preservation and progression. In fact, some have died during childbirth, while others are left with depressing temporary and chronic disorders. One such condition is the obstetric fistula. In sub-Saharan Africa, poverty and lack of sound healthcare systems and policies have seen the region emerge as the worst affected as far as obstetric fistula is concerned. Women who suffer from fistula often find themselves in a tight spot. The signs and symptoms can be unsightly. It is not just the stench they emit, there are other possible dangers that lie in the involuntary flow of urine and fecal matter. Women with fistula are often an easy target for horrendous stigma. This is not new on the continent. The position of women in some African societies and the patriarchal nature of these communities have made women easy targets for shaming with or without stigma. Many victims are left nursing psychological trauma as a result of these shaming attitudes directed at them. Dr. Weston Kisa, an obstetrical and fistula surgeon, has been conducting surgeries for women experiencing fistula in the region for over 16 years. Thousands of mothers have benefited from his professional assistance.
In my career, I have had the privilege of serving over 4,000 women living with fistula. I must say this is not the easiest road to travel, but with it comes the fulfillment of putting a smile on the faces of women. The constraints in our society today have made it difficult for women living with fistula to access information on proper medical care, and even when they do, they are still limited by the inefficiencies of our health system.
My illness started in 1973. I was taken to hospital for delivery. I had a prolonged and difficult labor. The doctors had to use metals to pull out the baby. The metals teared my urinary bladder. Following this ordeal, I was in a coma for 1 week. Even doctors had given up on my survival. Luckily, I started talking by the second week, and doctors were very happy. Just imagine, my own mother-in-law despised me. She could say, this stinking thing should have died and buried at the hospital. In her mind, I was an animal, not a human being. But my parents were very understanding. They wanted to take me back home, but my husband refused, only for him to marry another wife when I was at the hospital for repeat surgery. When I got home from hospital, I got a rude shock. Having a younger wife and a new baby, my husband neglected me completely. This affected me a lot. After 40 years of loneliness and shame, I was lucky to have a successful surgery in 2013. Although I'm a bit weak, I'm happy that I look normal. I developed the fistula in 2016. At the time, I encountered so many problems that I can't find the right words to express it all. I lost my baby and developed fistula at the same time. I did not understand the depth of what had happened to me and went through a lot of turmoil. When my in-laws realized I had a stillbirth and fistula, they left me in hospital without a second thought. I suffered a lot. Everyone close to me abandoned me in hospital. There was no help from anyone. For a whole month, I was confused, traumatized, and heartbroken. My mother-in-law said she cannot take care of someone who has no baby. She then proceeded to relocate my husband to another region, far from where we lived, so that I could not reach him. Suddenly, I was homeless. I felt I should die instead of going through this kind of trauma. Just before I could harm myself, I received a lot of psychological support from this group of researchers. Also, they prepared me for surgery and cared for me during the post-operative. I had a successful surgery, and I thank God for my healing.
As medical personnel, we face a lot of challenges ranging from infrastructure, skills, psychosocial issues. We try address them in the best way that we can. As healthcare workers who also handle mothers who suffer from fistula and stillbirth, we also have the challenge of health education. The community is not well enlightened on what to do when it comes to child and maternal health care. I think this is as a result of lack of education. They have not been taught on what to do, which is something we should practice as a community and as healthcare practitioners. With regards to these challenges that we are faced with as healthcare providers, there are things that can be worked on. Most of them can actually be made possible. If all the stakeholders, authorities involved would come together, issues may be avoided, like the maternal and child deaths that we experience on a daily basis. This affects us mentally, psychologically, and even emotionally.
The challenges that they have to deal with on a day-to-day basis are beyond their control. Often, the issues that follow them can be categorized along the lines of the real fistula itself and the societal perception-related issues such as stigma and isolation. The major challenge is unavailability of quality health services. This problem is deeply rooted in the continent, yet it's almost non-existent in other parts of the world. It points to just how far we are from accepting that basic health is a basic right for every human being, including the women. The kind of tribulations these women go through are unwarranted. It is slow torture that leads many women to depression and suicidal tendencies. Many of these women just stop living, and this is the tragedy of life. As a people most affected by this problem, we must work harder towards a fistula-free generation by improving access to quality emergency obstetric care as a first step in the fistula prevention, and also effective management of obstetric emergencies. And thirdly, immediate care of the obstetric fistula or women who develop obstetric fistula and its treatment. And this is indeed achievable as a country and as a people.
I was so worried because I had never suffered from fistula before. So I was afraid that what kind of life will I be living with this condition. I was rejected by my family, my in-laws, and also my friends. Some even started calling me names, which made me feel lonely, and I isolated myself. I could not manage to stay in a group due to the cloth wetting and also the smell. I was feeling embarrassed that when I go to the church or even visit a friend and I want to stand, what stories will I leave behind? I thought I was cursed or even bewitched. And it reached a point that I felt like committing suicide. But my husband was there for me. He stood by me till this point. Many people told him a lot of things. Some even told him that how can he live with a disabled wife? But he didn't listen to them. He stood with me all along. After 2 years living with this shame, I heard about free fistula camp and I visited them. I was received well. A surgery was done to close the fistula and I'm now okay. Thanks to my husband here for standing by my side through all the tribulations. Thank you.
I had a lot of difficulties taking care of my wife because nobody told me what to do when fistula develops. I wish the healthcare workers could have told me how to take care of her, more so how to handle the stigma and rejection that followed thereafter. My wife was rejected by our family members. The rejection that also affected me so much so that I had to lose weight. I had a lot of stress and sleepless nights. My wife also had a lot of stress, lost a lot of weight. She also had sleepless nights, more so because she used to keep to herself because she had no company. My brothers even went ahead and brought me another girl to marry, saying that my wife had been so promiscuous, and that is why she had fistula. I was not happy. I got mad on them and chased them away. I decided my wife is still the same with or without fistula. Anyway, we went through a lot of pain and suffering before we had that hospital where the surgery was done. And my wife is now fully healed and well, and we are living happily. My advice to men outside there, when fistula knocks at your door, don't run away. Don't neglect your wife because of what people say. Believe you me, fistula, like another condition, is treatable. It is not witchcraft. And let us stand together and fight this thing called fistula out of Africa. Thank you.
Kenya is not the only country with high cases of obstetric fistula. Many sub-Saharan African countries are not faring any better. Estimates from the World Health Organization state that 130,000 cases of obstetric fistula are reported each year in sub-Saharan Africa. This accounts for 2% of the 6.5 million incidents of obstructed labor that are reported in developing countries across the world. A huge number of these cases go untreated. In fact, the World Health Organization puts up to 1 million cases of unrepaired fistula in sub-Saharan Africa. Interestingly, the continent also has capacity to repair only 10,000 cases annually. As more and more women fall victim to obstetric fistula, very few experts like Dr. Kisa are available. And as African societies continue sticking to cultures and religious beliefs like female genital mutilation and arranged marriages, prospects of a lasting solution remain elusive. Focus now shifts to awareness, especially the involvement of men who shape tradition and religion on the continent. African governments can achieve this with sound policies that are backed by proper and focused implementation. So what can we do to prevent fistula to develop? How do we facilitate access to health services to women who have developed fistula? How do we support women who had an unsuccessful surgery or will never access one?
Support your partner decisions around pregnancy and childbirth. Participate in the care of your spouse. Ask questions to healthcare professionals to understand your partner needs after childbirth.
In the community, do not isolate these women. A gentle smile, greeting them, is always a sign of inclusion. Link women to peer support groups if they are present. Help women to continue with their small businesses without stigmatizing or isolating them. Buy their products when it's possible. Support them in every given way. Involve fistula ambassadors in the community to hear their experiences and identify women who need them.
Everyone has a role to play. Women, healthcare professionals,